This is a production of Cornell University.
Hello, my name is Kensy Rodriguez. I am a Ph.D. student at Cornell, and today I'm with
Steve Reiners. I'm a horticulture professor and the statewide vegetable specialist.
And today we want to talk about harvesting winter squash. So Steve, we are here in a winter squash field, and we want to ask you, when is the right time to harvest the winter squash?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm just going to kneel down over here and try to move some of these leaves around so we can see this. So this is a Blue Hubbard, I think, is what you said. This it looks like a Blue Hubbard, maybe a smaller variety of one. So this is called a winter squash as compared to a summer squash. And the reason why is because these are going to take a longer period of time to grow, but they can be stored through the winter. But the key for keeping them long-term is knowing when to harvest these. Things like zucchini, summer squash, cucumbers, you can pick them at any time and they'll be fine, even when they're very small. But with these, you want them to develop for the full season, because then they'll develop a beautiful balance between sugars and starches that you will get in this. But again, the key is harvesting it at the right time, and a very simple way to do it. Now here it is in August, it's way too early, we know that. But as you're getting closer to the time, sometime in September, you're wondering about when you should harvest. An easy thing to do is just what we call the fingernail test, and see if you can put your fingernail into that, and I've just done that very easily because it's still very soft. If this was ready for harvest, I'd have a hard time, it would almost hurt my finger trying to put my fingernail in there. So it's a very simple way to do it, but that'll tell you. Now you're seeing this, and if you look very closely, you can even see some water coming out. But the nice thing about this, if you come out here in a week's time, this should actually have a callus on it, almost like we get scabs after we get cut. This will develop that same thing while it's out here. So again, this is something we would certainly be leaving. It's going to get bigger, but it's certainly not ready for harvest now.
And let's say this was ready to harvest, what will you do next? Will you storage like any other cucurbits, or what will be the procedure to kind of storage in the right way and consume it later?
Right. So if you have this in your garden and you only have one or two of them, you could take that, once it's ready, you could harvest it, you could use it right away. That would be okay. But again, since this is a winter squash that we could store through the winter, if you have several of them, what you could do is harvest them. Always good to cut it so you're leaving a couple of inches, an inch or two really, of the stem. We don't want to pull it off that, so cut it using shears or something like that, so you get a nice clean cut there. And then bring this squash into an area where it's going to be 80 to 85 degrees, very warm, and a high humidity of 80 to 85%. Leave it there for 2 weeks, 10 days. And then what will happen at that time is some of the moisture will start to come out of the squash, and that will concentrate the sugars. Any scratches or marks, nicks that you might have on that will develop a callus, so they'll store better in that way as well. And just the flavor profile will be better once you use that. So once you do that for the 10 days to 2 weeks, then you can take this and put it into a cool area, not a refrigerator, but something like maybe 50 to 55 degrees with a humidity around 55% or so. So if you have a basement, this would be a perfect thing to store in your basement. And if you do everything right, if you cure it well, you store it, you could have it throughout the winter and even until next spring. The only exception with curing would be if you're growing acorn squashes. For some reason, acorns, you don't need to cure them, and you can just sort of put them right into the cooler storage.
We just learned about winter squash and how to harvest it. And according to Steve, we can storage these, but we need to have like certain conditions, and now we know when it's the right time to harvest it. Thank you.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.